Instead of pushing forward self-serving policies, the whole group tried to arrive at solutions for the problems of our country in keeping with your 10-point socio-economic agenda for inclusive growth. It helped, Mr. President, that 13 members of your incoming cabinet appeared before the participants. Quite a number of them stayed and participated in the workshop. This assured those who traveled far and wide that their voices will be heard. An incoming government ready to listen to every worthwhile idea was seen and felt in this hall since yesterday. There were many proposals, as expected. These proposals will be examined and considered inputs to the policy-making process of your presidency. I would like to now call on Mr. George Barcelon, President of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Led by Mr. Levels, board members of Mindanao Business Council, led by Mr. Dick Lau, colleagues in the business community, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Magandang hapon sa tayong lahat. Mr. President-elect, the nation needs a vision that all Filipinos here and abroad can identify with. A mission and master plan that's not just a medium-term plan that we together can implement for our children and their children. We recognize and are deeply grateful at the initiative Your Excellency and the incoming Cabinet Economic Cluster have taken to consult with the business community on how to move things forward. We are indeed honored with your presence today. I liken you, President-elect Rodrigo Duterte, as the captain of a ship docked at the wharf. You gave order to your quartermasters, your economic team, who has blew the horn, and businessmen from near and far has heard his calling. They have come from all over the Philippines to be here in your beautiful city. They're here to hear from you, and they're committed to help. Yesterday, your incoming Secretary of Finance presented the 10-point agenda, which was taken up during the afternoon. Each issue was analyzed, dissected, argued. Everyone has their own take. But at the end of the day, we came to a consensus of recommendations. The attendees that you see in front of you were not required to pay. They were invited. The only thing they got was a few free meals. But here we are able to tap the best mind of the business community to come up with all of these good recommendations. If you think about it, this comes very cheap. If we were to ask them to bill us, I don't think we can afford their talent. So I think at this time, I would like to request everybody to give those who are here and who work for this recommendation a big round of applause. The 2 days' work resulted in all the recommendations we see on the board. And after that, all the participants were asked to vote which are the priorities. We would like to think that this would provide you the coordinates. As a ship that sets sail, you need to plug in the coordinates to where you are going. We hope that this will guide our country to better days. And we look forward to you as the captain to call us to be on board. And like a good ensign, we go up the ramp, we salute, we requested permission to come aboard, and we are all here ready. And we'd like to hear from you, the sound, all aboard, and we set sail to the blue sea of change and good possibilities. I think I skipped one on my page. The resolution that emanating from the diverse industries represented in this hall form the business sector's resolve for the need of a long-term vision for the country, a vision that will be able to calibrate the direction of the economy with a stable base for growth of agriculture, fishery, industry, services, especially the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise, the MSMEs. The building blocks for collective synergy would underscore a competitive landscape, supportive of growth and integration of key economic sectors of globalizations, a transparent and responsive governance, and dependable bureaucracy, and a proactive and evolving agenda for jobs creation, supported by appropriate physical infrastructure and human resources development. Thus, we submit the following top 10 actionable recommendations, the product of this two-day consultation workshop. I am tasked to present the first 5. My co-convener, Mr. Lau, will present the second 5. So I will start with the first 5. The first is the adoption of a comprehensive tax reform package. Participants of the Sulong Pilipinas business consultation identified comprehensive tax reform as a primary concern for the country. Recommendations included a reduction in the corporate tax. I thought I'd hear some cost. Personal income tax and capital gains tax rates. The participants suggested that the tax rates and tax system be pegged to that of Singapore or Hong Kong. There was also a suggestion to not only bring down the tax rates to the levels of our ASEAN neighbors, but even make this a little lower to attract more investors. Recommendation also included the simplification of tax system, particularly for the micro, small, and medium enterprises, to reduce the cost of compliance, to promote voluntary compliance, and to increase collection. I'm sure Mr. Sonny Dominguez likes to hear this, increase collection. To fill in the deficit that will be left by the reduced tax rates, participants suggested increasing excise taxes by expanding the definition of luxury goods, among others. The second recommendations, implementations of national ID system for improved targeting of social services. Participants identified the pressing needs to institute a national ID system that would allow government agencies to provide more targeted social services and prevent double counting or leakage. It will also allow informal sectors to be properly identified. Enabling targeted interventions, support mechanisms such as improved access to health, food, education, and shelter programs. The system can also enhance peace and order efforts. Third, automation and streamlining of business permits and licensing systems to reduce bottlenecks in land titling, to ease and improve the cost of doing business and eliminate windows of corruption. Participants expressed the need to improve our ease of doing business agenda. As I said earlier, streamlining and automating process were possible, both at the local and national levels. They recommended that we expand the single window concept, discovering ways of limiting human discretion to reduce the opportunity for corruption. Participants also identified the need to consider extending the validity of various permits and licenses, as well as the use of negative confirmation for government's approval. In other words, automatic approval after a certain period of time, not action by the concerned agencies. Clear service level agreements are recommended to be established along with a performance-based mechanism to reduce fast turnaround time within the bureaucracy. Participants also recommended the removal of the needs for congressional franchises and the requisite for 300,000 landline for companies to be granted international gateway license, which would allow internet services provider to purchase bandwidth from landing stations. They also recommended that the internet cooperatives, similar to electric cooperatives, be promoted to ensure enhanced access, especially in the far-flung areas of the country. They also recommended investing in submarine cables and rent this out to the telecommunications companies. Fifth, delivery of support systems or services to farmers and fishermen, such as financing, incentives, technology, irrigation, post-harvest facilities, farm-to-market roads, improved logistic and integration of the supply chain to fully develop the potential of the agricultural industry and to develop rural areas in the countryside. Participants recognize the vast untapped potential of the agricultural sector, as reflected in the contributions of the sector to the economy and employment. These are attributed to farmers' poor access to credit and support services, expensive inputs, high cost of transport, and the incomplete land reform program, which has also limited options in achieving economic scale of greater efficiency. To address this concern, it's proposed to adopt value chain development in rural-based enterprises, including agricultural and mariculture, to raise regional and rural productivity and employment. They also propose to provide a support system to the agriculture sector through financing, government guarantees to farmer loans, microinsurance, technology, institute ICT solutions to link farmers to institutional buyers through good agricultural practices or GAP, and logistic, farm-to-market road infrastructure. So with that, I end my part of the first 5 recommendations. Maraming po sa inyong lahat.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. President Elect, members of the cabinet, and my fellow businessmen in the group. Change is not so bad. We've seen a lot of changes already, which we believe will redound to a lot of advantages to a lot of people in the countryside. Let me elaborate the rest of the proposals that were taken up during yesterday's workshop. We have number 6, the implementation of responsible mining with local value added such as processing and limiting raw material export. Some participants recommended to gradually eliminate the export of mineral ore to grow value-added processing and a strong mineral products industry domestically. Moving higher into the value chain by developing the iron and steel industry, the copper, wire and tubes and other metal-based industries will usher in the industrialization of the country. Number 7, you have the development and implementation of a national strategy for industries where the country has the greatest competitive advantage and preparing the local workforce for these industries. Participants noted the need to have a national strategy and development plan to identify areas where our country has the greatest competitive advantage, both domestically and globally, and the national strategy will identify specific sectors of competitive advantage to optimize the value and production of our land, our resources, and our people in a sustainable way. Participants recommended that we review how to remove silos to have an all-of-government approach across department, national and local governments with strategic partnership with the private sector. This recommended action plan may identify industry clusters and within these clusters develop manufacturing and agriculture, farming, supply and value chain development. Participants recommended also that government develop within specific regions industries where we will have the most competitive advantage. For instances, areas like Clark and Batangas for manufacturing, Bohol for tourism, Negros for agriculture, Sarangani for fisheries, and Cagayan de Oro for agriculture and manufacturing. These clusters will require lower transport and logistics costs, lower energy costs, and pursue economies of scale. Within these clusters, SMEs may locate themselves as part of value and supply chain. There is a need to adopt a shared cost mindset to lower infrastructure costs, which may be achieved by consolidating requirements of roads, housing, ports, and airports in the cluster. These clusters are envisioned to become hubs to develop the skills and competencies of the local workforce of that region. Number 8 was improvement of transport network across the country to improve connectivity. There was a clear clamor to speedily implement infrastructure projects across the country. On airports and ports, participants recommended that government develop a clear national strategy which includes utilizing airports outside Metro Manila, such as Clark Airport or the military airports, and utilizing Batangas and Subic ports to decongest Metro Manila. To improve connectivity, participants suggested the development of regional airports and the Sasa port. On roads and mass transport projects, particularly recommended as actionable items were the North-South Railway projects, the C6 projects, and the Cebu Bus Rapid Transit project, and the most important one of all, the Mindanao Railway. Review of the Conditional Cash Transfer Program. The participants recommended to review the CCT program because they perceive this program as one that promotes dependency on the government. They noted that the best protection of the poor is to give them the opportunity to learn skills and get a job that is long-term intervention that teaches them to catch fish rather than to give them fish. The participants suggested enhancing social protection initiatives by including cash for work, livelihood projects, provisions of supplemental feeding in schools, and support to MSMEs for capitalization, capacity building, research and development, equipment, marketing, and promotion. The last but not the least is the reduction in the bottlenecks in the PPP and infrastructure projects and respect for the sanctity of contracts. Participants want concrete measures to address factors preventing speedy implementation of vital infrastructure projects. Factors include synergy between the local and national government and implementing institutions, and right-of-way issues such as informal settlers' location. This applies to PPP projects and those funded through the national government. At the same time, delegates also want the incoming administration to assure that the existing and future infrastructure contracts will be honored. These, Mr. President, are the business leaders' aspirations, and we look forward to you as our CEO with your whole cabinet as the chief operating officers to assist you. You can give the signal and the whole country will follow. Thank you very much.
May we request Secretary Dominguez to please stand and introduce our honorable guest.
Thank you, George. Mr. President, we know that over the past few weeks you have been deluged with all sorts of opinions and ideas. The ones presented here today, however, represent the best thinking of our business community from all over the country. I think we should give them all a big hand for their efforts. We will continue to consult the business sector as well as other stakeholders moving forward to build coalitions for change so that we can act very quickly. Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the Republic of the Philippines, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Salamat. I was given a copy ahead of today, the recommendation of socio-economic programs to government, and I assure you, we will study and review it. And for now, I would say, I see nothing wrong with this. These are doable. It's a matter of just doing it. Implemented properly. Let me dwell at governance in the light of what I have been schooled. You know, I'm a lawyer and I never pretended to be an economist. And as a matter of fact, I could hardly pass the subject economics even in college. So I never made any projections about what will happen to this country financially or whatever. And for the many occasions that I was invited, the unanimous opinion was that I did not give any economic programs to present. Now, you must remember that I'm a lawyer and I choose criminal law as my field of specialty. I became a trial prosecutor for about 9 years before I became mayor. Now, in between, for another years, I was teaching criminal law, criminal evidence, and criminal procedures, and killing criminals. So, do not expect me to just discuss with you these economic programs, especially taxation. Cesar Barata, the venerable old man of the finance world, told me when I went to him for an advice, I said, never just agree on anything about taxation. Let the experts in your government do it. The best that you can do is just keep silent and wait for the ready and actionable action that you might want to take on the matter. As I was officially one but all of these things, and verily, this will be studied by each and every department to where the subject matter belongs. Then maybe I could just read it in its final form and convene the cabinet to give its inputs. But I have no doubt about the people who have chosen to comprise the cabinet. They all are Filipinos, loving their country and raring to do their share of nation building. If you want to talk about sentences, determinate sentence law, anong klaseng criminal law, crime and criminality, I could give you a lecture for 1 week. We can always stay here for a while and give you all that are really the impact on crime and criminality at governance. Now, when I was a prosecutor, many cases were lost by default because of corruption, changing the evidence from Cebu to Tawas and all these things. And it is really a lousy government. I do not want to offend anybody, but including the police. Kaya hirap tayo. Now, I hold it as an article of faith, having the experience in Davao, that there can be no progress or development of a local government and the community unless there is law and order. Now, you do not compare Manila to Davao. Hindi pwede kasi naiwan. Manila was ahead by so many decades before Davao City came into being. So what I really saw before my eyes unfolding when it came here in 1949. I was just a child and I saw Davao really grow and grew. Ang nakita ko was during peaceful times, ang Davao maganda. But came the turbulent years of martial law and anarchy set in, especially here in Mindanao. And there were so many rebellious fronts, insurgency problems, which this country has to cope up with until now. Now remember that you cannot have peace in Mindanao. You cannot invest in Mindanao, bring in the materials, dalhin mo dito kung anong makinarya mo, because in At the end of the day, if we don't pay the taxes, the national people's army will just burn it. And many of you have suffered this kind of fate. In some areas, hindi masyado sa Davao, because I was able to connect with all forces acting as the pressure groups in an economy. So I started by just talking to the left to leave Davao and start killing or cutting each other's throat with the government security forces. And then I was able to convince them to go out of the boundaries. Doon na lang kayo sa Surigao. Doon na lang kayo sa Surigao. Huwag lang dito because it will affect the totality of the fiber of the community. Ay talagang walang mangyari. So how can you invest now and find business in Mindanao, especially? Now, ang problema ko because I used that just to watch over a small community like Davao City. There are two kinds of forces that will affect this country today. The rebellious fronts, the insurgencies, and the crime and criminality. Dito sa revolutionary fronts, I have realized early on that you cannot outkill each other. No such thing as succeeding in a revolution by killing all of them. Dito naman sa Davao, it was right after martial law. As there were a lot of people during martial law giving arms. As a matter of fact, yung Philippine National Police Headquarters, meron silang lathe dyan na machine at the back of the barracks. And they were producing as many guns as there were